Hello and welcome to another episode of the USTM podcast. I'm your host Shabnam Saikia. Today we will talk about radiation, a term that always brings up many questions and concern. Radiation is a part of our life in many ways, and today we will discuss about the effects of radiation in our life. To understand this topic, today we have with us a very special guest, Dr. Rabin Saikia from PA Sangma International Medical College and Hospital. Dr. Saikia is a leading expert in this field, and his insight will help us to know the benefits and risks of radiation. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Saikia.
Thank you, Shabnam. I am glad to be here today for this show.
Sir, for many of us, the word radiation can be a bit intimidating. So, could you help us to define what is radiation?
Sure. Yes, thank you for your good question. Basically, radiation is a term which is used most of the times in the physics, and the good part of the radiation is used in medical science for treatment as well as in diagnostic line. So radiation doesn't only mean that this is something radiating from a radioactive source. It can happen even in natural way from the earth also. And actually it was coming from the earth, and later on for different research purposes and different causes, it was extracted from the earth and radiation used in the medical laboratories as well as in physical laboratories. So primarily speaking, only radiation doesn't mean that it is something happening within a laboratory. So it may be a natural phenomenon.
Thank you so much for the clarification, sir. So, sir, could you help us to understand the different types of radiation we encounter, naturally or artificial? So, and what are the sources of this radiation?
Thank you. This is a very good point. In fact, we thought most of the time radiation has no types or just a radiation. But you know, Shabnam, radiation may be man-made or it may be natural, as you know. Mother Earth is a big source of radiation, like different minerals, different sources of radiation from the earth itself. And some we do it for research purposes, as I told you, in the laboratories and maybe within a confined area. Like in medical science also, it is used in diagnostic as well as therapeutic purposes. Those are man-made. So as we are concerned for the medical field, so we will talk more on the man-made radiation rather than going for the Mother Earth radiation. But whether it may be man-made or it may be natural, anyway, we are going to have some good and bad effects of this radiation. I think this is clear to you.
It is very informative, sir, and it's good to know about the difference between the artificial and natural sources also. Sir, could you explain how radiation is used in medical sector?
Thank you. This is a very good point. People, they should know how radiation is used in medical field in different forms. Medical field, radiation is used not only for diagnostic purposes as well as therapeutic or treatment purposes, simply said. Most of the time in medical field, radiation, the common is the X-ray. But radiation has different forms like X-ray, beta ray, gamma ray. And nowadays, with increasing number of cancers in the medical field, radiation is used detection of cancer as well as evaluation of the treatment response as well as the cure or the therapeutic response evaluation. That's what we evaluate in PET scan. The PET scan not only used in cancer but also used in other non-cancerous diseases. X-ray is one of the modality where it is widely used, and cobalt therapy and other forms of radiation, radioiodine, these are also used for cancer treatment as well as different kind of thyroid disease and its treatment also. So in medical field, it has both way. One is the therapeutic, one is the diagnostic way, I should say.
Sir, it is incredible to think about the advancement in medical sector. Sir, moving to the next question, what are the everyday sources of radiation and what should we concern about?
Very good point. If I have to talk about the day-to-day life and the radiation, I will divide it into two parts. One is medical person. That means those who are working in a medical field, treating patient or coming to a hospital as a job regularly, and those who are not coming to the medical. And number 3 category will be those who are concerned in radiation and research purposes. So definitely for natural radiation and other two categories, apart from medical and research category, they have to do nothing for natural or Mother Earth radiation. It's just like a sunlight. Number one is, I will take the example of those people who are working or doing research in radiation field. Of course, there is a limit of radiation they should take exposure. There are different methods of measuring the radiation. So they should obey all regulations according to the AERB, that means Atomic Energy Regulatory Board in India, and they have international norms also. So there are different methods of radiation measurement during a year. There is a different quality of total number of radiation, how much they should get it, and they should get it monitored by the competent authority. And the most important is they should avoid unnecessary exposure to any kind of radiation, right? Number three category will be the medical field. So as I told you before in my lecture, we can divide it into two. Number one is the diagnostic line, number two is the therapeutic line. So for therapeutic, there is a big amount of radiation usually applied for the patient. But for therapeutic purposes, there is a line in medical science as low as reasonably achievable. That is called ALARA principle, ALARA. ALARA principle is always followed in diagnostic line of radiation, like in X-ray. Like we can reduce the radiation to a minimum where we can get a good quality of X-ray. But it's not that we'll give more radiation, we'll get a very good quality of X-ray. It's not like that. We should give that much of radiation to the patient for a simple X-ray, which will give us a quality of X-ray which is readable, and we can just get inside the human body and get the disease. And for other purposes like PET scan, like radioiodine, like cobalt therapy and all, those are also applying the same ALARA principle. Got it? So the normal day-to-day life, like say you are a medical worker and you are not a professional person who is treating a patient, but you are maybe some kind of a job working in a medical college. In that case, I will advise you to get rid of the radiation area and to get rid of radiation exposure, because for you that's a day-to-day life and routine activity. One patient is coming to a hospital, maybe he or she may be coming once in a year, or maybe after 5 years she is visiting the radiology department. But for you, you are coming radiology department regularly in a regular patient. So there is a high chance that you might get some kind of radiation, man-made radiation. So that is the point where you should not enter into the area when the radiation is going or when there is a chance of secondary radiation. There are different principles, there are different methods of reducing the risks of radiation, of course, but this is what we should follow in day-to-day life. I think this point is clear to you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, sir. So, sir, what practical advice you would like to give to our listeners to avoid unnecessary exposure to radiation?
Thank you, Shabnam. You are asking me about the tips how we should avoid radiation. You know, tomorrow is the 8th of November, and this is one of the very memorable day in medical science because this is the discovery of X-ray by Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen. So it is observed as International Day of Radiology. So X-ray is used not only in the form of X-ray, it is the CT scan, which is another modified form of X-ray. So CT as well as X-ray has both radiation. And I should say more about the medical field, as we are concerned about the medical health and related to radiation. Unless and until if your doctor is not advising you to go for an X-ray, you should not go for an X-ray. Somebody might get a trauma or an accident, and we can come to the radiology department just simply to go for an X-ray. But this is dangerous. Someone might have a cough and asking for the radiographer for an chest X-ray. This is also dangerous. Unless and until your doctor is calculating the risk-benefit ratio, then and then you should get an exposure for an X-ray. With the advancement of technology, our people nowadays know that PET scan can diagnose cancer at an early stage. There might be a trend and some tendency to go for a PET scan without advice by the doctor. But this is too dangerous for that patient. Why? PET scan or this kind of radiation, they have effect in human health in two terms. One may be in a short term, one may be in a long term. Long term, the bigger example is the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Any patient, any woman coming to the radiology department in her reproductive age group, the most common question asked by the radiographer is, are you a pregnant lady coming for an x-ray? Why? We are more concerned not only for the patient but also for the baby who is coming to the earth in few days or maybe in few months. This is dangerous. X-ray or radiation exposure in medical and non-medical field can affect in two forms. One may be acutely, maybe in hours or in maybe days, and one may be chronic or in late, that may or the effect may come after decades. Maybe in the form of genetic mutation, maybe in the form of different malignancies. So the common and the most acceptable advice is you should not go for any kind of investigation, you should not go for any kind of exposure related to radiation without advice by your physician. So I think as a medical person, that will be the most safest and the most common and most widely accepted advice from my side to the common people.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, sir. I'm sure our listeners have gained a lot of knowledge about this topic. To our listeners, remember that a term radiation may sound like intimidating, but it is an integral part of our healthcare and safety. With the right knowledge, we can make informed decisions to balance risks and benefits. Thank you so much for tuning into the show of the USTM podcast. Stay safe and keep learning. Until next time.